welcome back to my channel, Screaming Firehawks, and if you are new here, welcome. This is where I like to watch, react, and review a variety of stuff related to sci-fi, fantasy, and comic books. So, in today's video, I'm going to be doing something I've never done before, and I'll be honest, I don't plan on doing that much of in the future. The only reason why I'm going about reviewing a book, or in this case, it's a novella, is because it's related to the episodes of The Expanse that I'm watching right now. So what I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is 12 key aspects or 12 really interesting points that I enjoyed about the Churn and Expanse novella. But before I get to talking about that, let me just quickly cover some basic stuff. If you're new to my channel, listen up. First thing you should know, this is a spoiler-filled reaction video. Spoilers ahead related not only, of course, to this novella that I'm going to talk about, but also to the Expanse TV series, mainly Season 5, likely Episode 2, which is called Churn, and Episode 5, which I'm going to be tying into with an aspect of the book. So, spoilers ahead, you've been warned. Okay, everyone, so now I'm going to share with you what I believe to be key points from this novella that I really enjoyed, and I'm going to lace in one main thing that somewhat disappointed me. Not a lot, but enough for me to bring it up as something that I would like to get some feedback about, okay? Now, keep in mind, this is my first review of a book. I don't review books, okay? And I am long-winded naturally, so it is quite an effort for me to condense as much as I can all the info that I've taken or all the notes I've taken of this novella. So I have my notes that I'm looking at here so I don't forget too many things, okay? So just bear with me here. All right, so let's start with the first thing I really enjoyed with this novella, and that is the world building aspect of it. I was really impressed that within 60 pages, I had a very fleshed out idea as to how things looked in the neighborhood, how people went about their daily lives. That was really nicely done. And that, of course, is credit to really good writing. So the world building aspect of this novella, as simple as it may be for just a city on Earth, was really well done. And the second thing I enjoyed about this novella was that the relationships between Timmy and Eric, Timmy and Lydia, and Timmy and the original Amos Burton was well defined within 60 pages that I did not feel like I needed to know more afterwards. And that is very rare for me personally, especially when I enjoy something. You always want more, you want to know more, you want to know more. Okay, especially when it comes to Timmy and Lydia, I had my questions. But what they delivered in terms of dialogue between these characters was satisfying enough for me to get not only the bigger picture of each of their respective relationship with Timmy, but also for me to be like, that's cool, all right, I get it, and focus on the Amos Burton that I know in the TV series and in the upcoming books that I will eventually, hopefully, read. Now, the third aspect of this novella that I found very fascinating, and I'm using that word deliberately, okay? Fascinating. So I'm referring to the relationship between Lydia and Timmy. And I know many of you won't be surprised that I was surprised at the sexual nature involved in their relationship. So the book says that Timmy is living barely past his second decade of life. So I'm assuming he's around 16, 17, what thereof. And Lydia, she's gray-haired, she's got lines, she's starting to show liver spots on her hand. So I'm presuming she's perhaps in her late 50s, going into her 60s. I don't know. All I know is that she's old enough to be his mother and more. All right? Now, that's not the aspect that surprised me, I'll be honest. For real. Even though I've personally never read of a relationship like that in any fictional books, okay? I personally have not read that. I don't think vampires count, because there has been a vampire tale I read with similar intimacies like that, but not with human beings, okay? So I just want to put that out there. Now, I see their relationship as very complex with two complex characters. So there are a couple of points about their relationship I want to bring to your attention, which will be laced in with one aspect about it that disappointed me in terms of the writing and the expression of certain things. So I'll start with the first thing that kind of puzzled me a little bit, and that was, why was there a sexual relationship between them? And in the book, they actually don't just show it like as if like, oh, they're lovers and stuff like that. No, 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 no. And I could see how someone skimming through this book could easily be very judgmental and thinking she's some kind of pervert and all that. And interestingly enough, there are 2 paragraphs where she justifies her actions. So after reading the paragraphs where Lydia details how sex really has no meaning for her because it has multiple meanings and it can be used for a variety of reasons, I was kind of trying to understand why in that moment they described her having sex with Timmy. And so on a second read, I really broke it down line by line, sentence by sentence. And this is what I've interpreted. If it at all helps anyone out there who perhaps could have been easily offended on their first read by the actions taking place between these 2 characters. So how I see it, Timmy grew up with sex and violence. And in the book, right before they're having sex, Timmy actually killed someone for the first time, and he seems to have been traumatized. And Lydia recognized the signs of trauma, which kind of translates to the signs of shock because he was feeling ill, he was feeling nauseous, his skin was cool, his face was pale, and so she recognized he was in a physical state of shock. And from the Amos that I'm used to in the TV series, I've noted that when Amos really needs to express his emotion, it's either through violence or it's either through sex. And so in this case, Lydia is someone that he cares about. So obviously, I think that one of the reasons, because there's 2 that I've interpreted, one of the reasons she does engage in sexual acts with Timmy is to help soothe him and comfort him through the traumatic emotional roller coaster he's going through. Otherwise, he will take it out through violence. All right, so that's one reason I believe there is a sexual relationship between them. And it's not about judging whether it's right or wrong. It just is what it is, okay? And the second reason I believe that there's a sexual element to their relationship is because the book describes saying that she had never been able to protect him from anything. So she'd help him live in the jagged world, and he gave her something she couldn't describe or define, but that she needed like a junkie craved the needle. So having read those paragraphs a second time around and really mulling over it, I've concluded that it's very much the way Lydia puts it. It's not some perverted thing where she's, going after him as this young boy that technically is somewhat of a son-like figure to her. It's because she can offer him something to soothe his pain when needed. Otherwise, Amos will likely resort to violence and harm himself and others. And so engaging in sex with him for comfort reasons plays its part. And when it comes to her personal needs, Timmy's there to fulfill it without any objections, it seems, based on the fact they do describe in the book his own physical attraction to her, which in my opinion transfers over to his attraction to Avasarala. But when it comes to how Lydia perceives her relationship with Timmy, I did note 2 contradictory statements. On one end, she's claiming that their relationship has nothing to do with love and he's not her lover and they are who they are and they're doing what they're doing and that's their business. And on the other end, it seems as if there is an actual attraction to him as a lover because she describes him as her almost son and sometime lover. So I'm just wondering if the contradiction is to show her own mental state isn't all that stable. Perhaps she has her own mental health issues where her perceptions of reality at certain given times of things is not as 100 as it should be. I could be wrong, and I hope I am, or what thereof, but let me know in the comments why those 2 statements don't seem to match up from Lydia's perspective of how she views Timmy and their relationship together. So, with everything I've just mentioned related to Lydia's relationship with Timmy and her perspective about the sexual nature of their relationship, it leads into the one main thing I'm disappointed as a reader, and that is the lack of perspective from Timmy's point of view. How I saw it was that if you're going to introduce to me two complex characters engaged in an unconventional act, really, between, a son-like figure and a mother-like figure, all right? If you're going to show me that, and you're going to have 2 paragraphs or 2 to 3 paragraphs that details how Lydia views sex, how Lydia views Timmy, why not follow it up with how Timmy viewed Lydia, so that I can have an idea if how he views sex with Lydia is equally the same. Does he not? I guess it doesn't bother him. And I think I've answered my own question as I'm saying this out loud. And I'll assume it's something you can either validate or correct for me in the comment section. And that is perhaps that Timmy, slash Amos, as I know him in my mind, is a man of few words and expresses himself in very simplistic terms. Timmy's simple way of expressing himself was evident even when he's talking to the OG Amos Burton, where he tells him, water's wet, sky's up, not much to think about, right? So is that the reason why they just didn't bother with a POV when it comes to the sexual nature of the relationship? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. The fourth nugget or tidbit from this novella I really liked seeing was the mention of the mug that Timmy made for Lydia as a child. In the novella, the mug is described as the cheap earthenware cup that Timmy had painted with glaze when he was 8 years old and given her for what he'd mistakenly thought was her birthday remained in the cupboard. And in season 5, episode 2, the Churn episode, when Amos returns to Lydia's apartment, he's looking over some of her stuff in the boxes and he notices the mug, and they actually show that on screen. And it was just cool to remember the scene as I was reading the paragraph in the book. And point number 5 that I found very interesting in this novella is that the churn, the experience of it, it's pretty much the sum of multiple problematic events. That's how I've viewed it, right? Based on how they've described what was going on. And so I thought it was an interesting twist of fate that Timmy mistakenly killed Austin instead of getting money from him right before the churn began. And that's actually what saved him from being killed off from Amos Burton himself. Because as Lydia puts it, Burton didn't always have need of boys like Timmy, but sometimes he did. Right now he did. Lydia sighed. The churn was coming. I thought it was just so interesting that the whole concept of the churn that is beginning in this book plays a part in saving Timmy from a fatal fate due to his own mistake. And speaking of interesting twists of fate, point number 6 is that Lydia herself inadvertently saves Eric from an early death. So I hope I interpreted this right, but it's at the moment where Timmy comes back to them on that little deserted island they were on, and he brings back 2 dinners. And that already was a first sign that, hey, he's not considering a third person because he was ready to go and shoot Eric. But Lydia stops him because she wants him to sit with her first. And that's before she notices the gun bulging through his pants. And then she realizes he was likely going to go and kill Eric. And so I thought that was quite fascinating that, whoa, she just stopped Amos from literally going right to Eric right away and shooting him, which then leads to the subsequent events that happened afterwards. That, again, was another interesting twist of fate that I'll talk about. The 7th cool tidbit about this novella is when the OG Amos Burton refers to Timmy as tiny. I friggin' laughed my ass off when I read that because immediately it reminded me of episode 5 of the 5th season where Amos, as we know him in there, refers to Konchak as tiny. And so the fact that he transferred over his own nickname to someone else based on the same physical attributes, I thought was absolutely hilarious. And so, yeah, I definitely had to point that out. And the next part of this novella that I enjoyed very much, in fact, I'm going to be honest, it's one of my favorite parts of the whole book. And I've reread it 3 times, okay? Just that part. Because the way it's described, moment for moment, action for action between Timmy and Amos is just brilliant. And that is the fight between Timmy and Amos that occurs between 2142 and 2144. So in less than 2 minutes, Amos gets a vicious beatdown by Timmy, which in the end leads to the original Amos Burton's demise and Timmy's opportunity to become the new Amos Burton. Now, I don't know about you, but I am just hoping and praying that the showrunners find some reason in the narrative, perhaps in season 6 or season 7 or whatever, to show a flashback to that fight, because to see that in live action with Wes Chatham would be frigging awesome. And if you agree with me, let me know in the comments, because I really enjoyed that part of the book. But the main part I really enjoyed, and I could see how some people might take offense to it, but I did not. I interpreted it as something quite accurate. And that is the part when Amos savagely says to Timmy along the lines that he had owned his mother and that Timmy was only second generation property. In my opinion, I think that those words accurately describe the mindset of an oppressor, and it's so on point about how poverty is predominantly a generational cycle. The next thing I noted as very cool and interesting was the irony. The irony of Eric creating an escape plan for Timmy to get off Earth. I was so surprised how the novella describes Eric as the one who had more of an interest or a passion to explore being free off of Earth. In the novella, there's even a major paragraph where Eric actually expresses the type of freedom he would like to experience in outer space that he can't easily access on Earth for a variety of reasons. And to add to that, there's a moment where Eric even asks Timmy if he would like to go up in space, and Timmy's like, what for? And so I couldn't help but chuckle that in the end, it's because of Eric that Timmy, who didn't care to go to space or go anywhere else really, didn't really think about it that far as Eric had, ends up being the one that goes off planet and experiences the very freedom that Eric dreamed about for himself. The 10th point about this novella that I really thought was cool was that at the beginning of it, the OG Amos Burton is described a certain way with specific physical features, right? And a physical look. And then at the end, the new Amos Burton is described a whole other way with different characteristics. And I just love the contrast from the beginning of the book to the end of the book of one identity, namely Amos Burton. As for the second last aspect about this novella that I really appreciated, that really surprised me and delighted me, was the fact that in 60 pages, actually 58 according to my Kindle book, 58. In 58 pages or so, I got more than what I thought I would get. I got not only a backstory about Timmy's background, his relationships to the two people he cared about, his antagonistic situation with the OG Amos Burton. I got also more about other characters such as Liev. I got an idea about Liev's sense of humor, especially when he got arrested. And there was so much more in terms of the action and that character Oistra, you know. There was just a lot going on in 58 pages that I normally don't see in some of my other, fiction fantasy books in like 100 pages. I don't see that kind of action roll with each other so cohesively to tell a really fascinating and intriguing story. So that is definitely a kudos to the writers of this book, and it leads into the last main part about this novella, or main component of this novella, that I take as a wonderful positive that I want to share with you. And that is, since I haven't read the Expanse series of books, I personally think that this is a great teaser type of material to give someone. So what I mean by that is, I had said in previous reaction videos that I have so much on my list of stuff to read that I have to put the Expanse series of books at the back, right? But after reading this novella and getting an idea as to the style and the quality of writing, I've now decided to bump up the series of the Expanse books a little further up my list. And so I'm just putting it out there that if you're one of those people that have not read the series of books yet and you're kind of on the fence, you're not sure if you should watch a TV show first, because I know some people grapple with that. I have a friend right now who's grappling with reading the books first versus watching the show and so forth. And I've recommended to them to read this novella as a teaser if they're going to decide to read the books first before seeing the show, so they can get a better idea if it's something they want to commit their time to. Now, I'm sure there are some of you that may disagree with that, and that's okay. But I'm just saying, for me, this novella helped me appreciate not only the show a lot more, but also gave me more interest to bump up the series of books related to the Expanse to more closer to the top of my list. Not the top, but more closer to the top. And so I think that's a good thing. So there you have it, people. That is my 12 cents worth of an opinion related to my thoughts about the Churn and Expanse novella. I look forward to reading your comments related to my thoughts and opinions and questions that I've brought up in this video. So please feel free to go on ahead. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. I can't make any promises that I'll record any additional book reviews, especially when I get around to reading the Expanse book series, but you never know, you never know. So for now, I'm tuning out from this book stuff related to the Expanse, and I'm going to be tuning back into episodes 9 and 10 of the 5th season, catching up with everyone, and then waiting for season 6. So for now, until next time, I'm Asha. Peace out. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos and subscribe. You know you wanna.